Hello everyone, Simon Jacobson here, another episode of Meaningful Live. This will be a special program called Persia and Israel Then and Now, addressing this current crisis, war. This program is dedicated in honor of Magnus Engberg with heartfelt gratitude and warm wishes on his birthday. Of course, these are topics we'd rather not talk about, or better said, events that should never have happened in the first place. It's tragic to see the death of any individual, war, conflict, or all a reflection, with sirens in the background, of a far from perfect world, to put it mildly. So first I want to begin with a prayer and heartfelt wishes from our hearts and souls to all the innocent people who were killed just in the last hours since this war broke out. And I say innocent people because there are perpetrators and there are victims. Unfortunately, we live in a world where people have confused the two. It's very clear when you look with open eyes to see who are the perpetrators and who are the victims. So our prayers go out to protecting the military and soldiers who, in a preemptive strike, I don't even know if you can call it preemptive, because Iran has been threatening Israel literally with its annihilation. And so it's not just so preemptive, but God should protect all the soldiers and the military who are fighting to protect innocent men, women, and children in Israel and all over the world. And I'm of the strong feeling that the entire world should be showing gratitude and has a debt of gratitude to the Jewish people, to Israel, because this isn't just an attack on Israel, this is an attack on all the entire free world. And it's sad to see. To me, it's bizarre. It's completely ludicrous to see people criticizing Israel when Israel clearly is not the one that has in any way ever been on the offense to attacking anyone. It's only when they're threatened. And again, God should protect them all. But I'd like to talk about these events, firstly in context of what each of us should be and could be doing. And it's important to put things into context, because unfortunately this is not the beginning. For whatever reason, the Jewish people and Israel, specifically that country, has been under attack, we're talking about for thousands of years. Beginning from documented the exile and exodus from Egypt, we're talking now over 3,500 years ago. Well, closer to a little less than 3,500 years ago, 3,337 years ago to be exact. And then on an ongoing basis, the different empires that rose. And I will, of course, talk about the Babylonian and the Persian empires. And the very story of Purim, which is a story of victory of a Persian empire that was about to annihilate the entire Jewish people. That's what Haman wanted, and that's what he got a decree from the king of Persia at the time, Ahasuerus. And where is Persia based? Where modern-day Iran. And miraculously, things turned around, and the Jewish people were victorious. And it's actually this time of the year, the Megillah, which is the book of Esther, that documents the events, tells us, and out of the blue, even though Purim is celebrated on the 14th and 15th of Adar, which is more like in the months of February, nevertheless, there's one verse, one section in chapter 8, and verse, I believe, 10, where they talk about the fact that Esther, after finally telling Ahasuerus, the king, and king recognizing that Haman was the enemy, and therefore they killed Haman, they hung Haman on the same gallows that he wanted to hang Mordechai. But the decree had already been passed that on the day of the 14th of Adar would be the extermination and annihilation of all the Jews in the Persian Empire. And there was 127 different nations, different countries. So on the 23rd of Sivan, that day, which will be a few days from now, the 23rd of Sivan, literally 6 days from when the attack, when Israel launched the attack of Operation Rising Lion on Iran, the Book of Esther tells us that that day the scribes of the king wrote letters to all the nations to rescind Haman's decree. More importantly, a new decree that allowed the Jews to defend and protect themselves and kill all their enemies. So this is a story that's going on thousands of years. You can't ignore that. And you start connecting the dots. You wonder, what is this animosity? What is this hatred? Whether it was Haman back then, we're talking about over 3,000 years ago. Well, no, that would be more. I'm sorry, that's less than 3,000, more than 2,000, over 2,500 years ago. And you still see that animosity, the hatred in modern day Persia. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But the good news is that just as then, just in those days, so too today, we will be victorious. There's no question about it. Good ultimately prevails over evil, though we do not celebrate or accept in any acceptable way these events, but we know we will prevail. And that's where the Book of Esther continues, that that's indeed what happened. And when Mordechai, the Jewish people, recognized that now they can protect themselves, not only would they not be killed, but they can protect themselves and destroy their enemies, that's when it says, La Yehudim Hoysa, for the Jewish people, it was a celebration, a great celebration that took place. And so too will happen now. Now, this is not something what we want. It's not something that we've invited. But life is most important. And when people attack it, we have to do whatever is necessary to protect ourselves. So clearly there are cosmic and deeper forces at work here. It's very hard to wrap our heads around why there should be anti-Semitism in the first place. Why would the leaders of Iran, modern day Persia, hate the Jews so much that they feel they have to exterminate them, to destroy Israel, to destroy the Jewish people? So we understand there's all kinds of excuses and so on. But what lies within it lies something far deeper. It's not just a battle between Jews and non-Jews, or between Jews and those that hate Jews. It's a battle between God and existence. Not that the Jewish people are always perfect, but they represent in the eyes, from the beginning of time, a certain threat to the conformity and materialism of this world. What is odd here is that Islam, as was Christianity, was born out of Judaism. And yet, there's something about Judaism that keeps sticking in the eyes of Haman, the eyes of the modern day Khomeinis and Ayatollahs, and others that just hate Jewish people. And the answer is there's something about Jews that represent a threat to people who feel that they should be controlling the world. And the Jews are the ones that never bowed, as Mordechai would not bow to Haman, so too they never conformed. And that was like a claw in people's, like a thorn in people's side. So the battle really is about a better world of good, or a world that will be dominated by violence, by anger, by death, and yes, by evil. So I'm not trying to suggest that the Jewish people represent pure good and the non-Jewish world not, because we have many millions and maybe billions of the non-Jewish world that have embraced the idea of a higher truth, and that all of us are equal and we all deserve to be respected. But those that still hold on to these radical and extremist beliefs, that they feel they have the right to eradicate another people, as the Nazis did over 80 years ago, and as Iran was calling, or as Persia of old, same story, that is unacceptable. Now, why the world and the world's leaders don't understand that, I cannot really answer that. I was just in Israel, as you may know. I spent time with President Javier Milei of Argentina, as well as with Prime Minister Netanyahu. And hours before Operation Rising Lion went into effect, after midnight, last Thursday night, I was with him at the wall, at the Western Wall. They were all praying. We had no idea what's going to be coming, even though I'm sure Prime Minister Netanyahu, of course, did. And he actually put a note in the wall referring to the rising lion. It's a verse in the Hebrew from the Bible, the book of Numbers, that says, here's a nation that rises like a lion and stands dominant like a lioness. And he put on a prayer shawl as he said this prayer. A few hours later, the attack was launched, the surprise attack was launched by Israel, bombing Iran. In between, after the wall, we went for a tour. The tunnels around the wall, and what those tunnels represent, the ancient temples that stood in that place. The temple that was destroyed by the Romans close to 2,000 years ago, and the second temple, and the first temple destroyed by the Babylonians approximately 500 years before that, more like 2,500 years ago. And we actually can see the remnants. You can see the pillars. I mean, they've dug there that they reach all the way to the first temple. So at the time it was very powerful to see world leaders walking through these tunnels after the prayers at the wall. But then when Operation Rising Lion was launched, I suddenly realized I'm literally standing in the center of history here. Looking back, connecting the dots of ancient Babylon, ancient Rome, the destruction of the Jewish temples. Babylon, as we know, was then conquered by the Persians, all in that period in time, all trying to annihilate and destroy the Jewish people and their temple and their land. And that's exactly what's happening right now. And we're literally walking through it. We found one of the coins that was discovered in these excavations is engraved with the name Netanyahu ben Yoash. And Prime Minister Netanyahu pointed to it. It says Netanyahu. And I shared with him, Netanyahu in Hebrew means Nasan Hashem, that God will give victory. Little did I know that here we are a few days later, a few hours later. My flight scheduled out of Israel to New York was right after midnight Thursday night. And that would be the last flight out of the country. Then the airport was closed and the operation was launched. But getting back to the lesson to us, the power of the lion, there's a very powerful medrash, which is an oral interpretation, where it says the following. It says a lion will rise in the month of the lion and will destroy the lion, on condition that a lion will rise in the month of the lion and rebuild the lion. Lion. What does that refer to? A lion will rise, says that's Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon of old. He was referred to as a lion. He will rise in the month of the lion, which is the month of Av. The Hebrew month of Av is the mazel, the sign of Leo, lion. And destroy the lion, referring to the holy temple, was called the lion. On condition that a lion will rise, the lion called God, in the month of the lion, the month of Leo, the month of Av, and will rebuild the next temple, the third temple, the final temple. And here we are walking literally into tunnels that demonstrate the pillars, many of the artifacts that go back thousands of years, the time of that first lion. And Persia today, at least roaring like a lion, we now see that they're more like a paper tiger, or a paper lion if you wish, threatening Israel, building nuclear weapons, and all that comes with that. And finally the lion has risen. A lion has risen to protect the innocent, and not just the innocent in Israel, the innocent everywhere. Iran, a sponsor of terrorism, not just against Israel, against the United States. Many covert ways and many very obvious ways. Finally, the time has come. Is it painful? Yes, it's painful. Are there sacrifices, casualties? There's collateral damage, correct. Nobody likes that. But the alternative is far worse. And then reading in the book of Esther and what happened on the 23rd of Sivan, you suddenly see there's a big historical context here. So first and foremost, we need to know we will be victorious. And not just miraculously. There are plenty of miracles happening. Keep in mind, imagine Hezbollah was in power. Syria was in power. What would Iran be able to do through their proxies? The Houthis, the Hamas. So there are many factors at work here that is allowing Israel to do its work. The non-Jewish world, meaning all the other nations of the world, should be rising with the lion in support. I believe that they will ultimately recognize it and acknowledge it. That's the story of history. First you condemn those that are saving your life, but then hopefully you come to appreciate it. But the point is, we have to act without waiting for all of that. So there's so many angles here. There's so many, I don't want to use the word storylines because we're dealing here with life and death. But there's so many aspects of this that also affect each one of us. Because we also have a Persia and an Israel within our hearts and souls. We have radical, you could say more selfish, narcissistic, and violent voices within us. The voice of war, the warrior, and we have the peaceful voice within every soul, searching for transcendence. And there's a battle going on. We always prefer no battles. We always prefer to solve things peacefully. But there are times that you have no choice. So I'm no question in my mind that Israel will be victorious. Iran will be vanquished. Hopefully, the people in Iran will recognize that it's time for a regime change. And I know there's no doubt that most of the Iranian population are not happy. Not just with what's happening now, but generally what's happening under the control of the religious fanatics in Iran. And that Iran, just as Germany in 1935 became a peaceful nation after World War II, an ally of Israel, of the United States, of the Western world, Iran can be a very peaceful nation. This is not a war against Iran, nor is it a war against the people of Iran. It's a war against a certain ideology that has taken hold and controlled, and ultimately has pushed the envelope too far, to the point that there's no choice but to bring them down, destroy all their capabilities and capacity to harm any innocent people. And it's a story that goes back thousands of years, but there's also a spiritual story. So I mentioned before that there's a medrash that says the following. A medrash is, like I said, an oral interpretation. It says there will be a day when a Muslim, or it doesn't say Muslim, it says a country from that part of the region, from that part of Arabia, will attack others. And people will be confused and be running around, what shall we do? What shall we do? And the Jewish people will also do the same. What should we do? Crisis. And God will respond, don't be afraid. Everything that is being done, I'm doing for you. The time of your redemption has arrived. And there it mentions clearly a king of Persia. The king of Persia will wreak havoc, which is exactly what Iran has been doing, as was in Persia of old. But the story will be that this is the time of your redemption. So let's look at these events as part of a narrative, a bigger narrative. Right now, yes, this is a painful period that we have to now endure for the next few days, or hopefully over as soon as possible. But what it'll lead to? A complete game changer of the entire region. Because once Iran becomes a peaceful country, imagine what will happen next. Syria and Lebanon are pretty much ready to make peace with Israel. Saudi Arabia will do the same. Getting rid of the also evil elements of Hamas and the Houthis, the entire region, which has been embroiled in war for so many centuries, can create a whole new era, a new frontier, a new future. Hard to imagine. If you're looking for a miracle, that's the ultimate miracle. So the events and victory 2,500 years ago in ancient Persia are not coming to a conclusion. That's what we're experiencing here. It is history in the making. Unfortunately, it's coming with some pain, with loss, and we're not trying to justify that. We're not trying to minimize that. But look at the bigger picture. We are on the verge of a new world order. And it's important to acknowledge it, not be apathetic and not take it for granted, and appreciate it, and thank the forces that have finally decided to make a move, and not just allow this to be a slow bleeding death, God forbid. So God again should bless all the innocent people, protect them wherever they may be, protect the soldiers that are fighting the good war, eliminate the enemies as soon as possible, so we could enter into a new era of eternal and forever peace. And yes, the rebuilding of the third temple of the lion in the month of the lion, by the lion. We don't have to wait for the month of the lion. Hopefully it happens earlier. The rising lion. Much more to be said on this, and I definitely will be talking about it in the coming programs. So please join us and stay tuned. The message here resonated with you, please share with others. Subscribe to our offerings, meaningfullife.com. I'd love to hear feedback, comments, critique as well. And let's all join together by adding a good deed, a good thought, a good word, by adding in unity. Light dispels darkness. So the war is not just a military one, it's also a spiritual one. Light dispels darkness. Embrace light. Be an agent of light, an ambassador of light, wherever you go. Be blessed. Again, may all the innocent people be protected, and may our soldiers do the job as well with full protection of the divine. Thank you.